just 40 days. 40 days after witnessing Exodus miracles, Moses comes down from Mount Sinai and everybody is worshiping a golden calf. Moses smashes the tablets, the law tablets written by the finger of God. How could a nation betray the covenant so quickly? To understand this moment of crisis, let's uncover everything in today's lesson. First, let's set the historical stage for the Exodus led by Moses. Second, let's learn 10 plagues that were a direct showdown between the God of Abraham and the gods of Egypt. Third, let's discover the 10 commandments given at Mount Sinai simultaneously with that infamous golden calf worship and some serious consequences. Plus, we'll compare the Mosaic Law with the Code of Hammurabi to understand what made it so revolutionary. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms. This is lesson 13 of 72 in our complete ancient history course. I'm Mr. Hull, and our deep dive into the Exodus and 10 Commandments begins now. Are you familiar with the Exodus story? And don't say it begins with slavery. We need to go to the covenant. Abraham's covenant, a series of binding agreements we've covered in other lessons. It's made between patriarchs like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In the book of Genesis, God promised to make Abraham's descendants a great nation. So vast, you can't even count all of the descendants. The covenant established this line and the descendants, and the Bible describes this treasure people, not because of any sort of superiority. I mean, they're enslaved right now, but because they have a unique mission to build a just society and be a light unto the nations, different than the other Canaanite kingdoms, different than the Egyptians. So how did this treasured people end up as slaves in Egypt? How do you view the idea of the promise that's supposed to last for generations when things go wrong? Has this happened to you? Have things gone wrong? This biblical account actually fits well with what historians and archaeologists are seeing in this northern region of Egypt, in Goshen, where we know the West Asiatics, the Hyksos people, the Canaanites, they had ruling power. But something happened, and the Semitic people, having their influence and their authority, previously welcomed, it looked like it was a gradual increase in their power, but something happened, and the Egyptians took back power. Prince Amosa, then Thutmose, and the New Kingdom starts, and then we know the Hebrews and the Canaanites that are still there are slaves. Then comes Moses. What do you know already about Moses? The basket, the threat of babies born around that time, the Pharaoh fearing that this growing number of Israelites, he has ordered that newborn Israelite boys are going to get killed. He orders guards to go and kill them. Moses' mother hears about this, and she saves him, places him in a basket on the Nile River. And in an incredible twist of fate, Moses was discovered, adopted by a Pharaoh's own daughter. He's raised in the Egyptian royal court, a Hebrew boy, an Israelite boy. He receives the very best education, the very best opportunities that this ancient place could offer. But as a young man, Moses sees something is wrong, something is different. And when he witnesses an Israelite slave being beaten, what do you do? What do you do in a moment of rage that brings him to killing? He kills the Egyptian, and it forces him to flee out of Egypt, out of the palace, out of the safety of what he knew. And he goes all the way over to the land of Midian, that is way over in the Arabian Peninsula, in an effort just to save himself, and leaves behind being a prince, part of the most powerful empire, the new kingdom, and now he's a fugitive. and he becomes a shepherd in the desert. And Mount Horeb is a location for Moses' life-altering encounter. The burning bush happens here. God appears in the burning bush. It's burning, but it's not burning. And he commands Moses to return to Egypt, lead the Israelites to freedom. And Moses is like, do you have the right guy here? Filled with self-doubt, lacking in courage, he argues with God. God sends him anyway, armed with the promise, with a divine covenant, a journey that takes him from the palace to the desert and back. And it's a journey of classical truth. It's leadership. And it's not coming from comfort. It's not about doing what's easy and something that you understand or know. Enduring great trials. And you've got a great trial to think about, right? I know I do. When I was coaching, that was, the journey to the state championship with the Jerome High School golf team. Definitely a tough journey that you just want to be over, but it's months and the difficulties. What would you do in that position? As Moses says, it's actually been 40 years. He gets married to Jethro's daughter. He was living in Midian. It's really a journey into history, virtue, and wonder as Moses goes back to Egypt for what's in store. As Moses moves back to Egypt to take on this challenge, I challenge you to click the like button, right? You probably like this story. You've heard parts of it, and I hope that it goes further in your classical journey. You know that classicalkingdoms.com has the full 72 lessons for your ancient history course. Moses returns decades later. So, they don't recognize him right away. He was a fugitive because he had murdered the Egyptian guard. He's a shepherd with no particular speaking skills. And he's confronting the most powerful ruler on earth. In another lesson, we covered New Kingdom Egypt is a massive empire, and it's unlike anything around the world in this late Bronze Age setting. You're confronting this master of the world. Imagine this as a sports contest or a chess match where one player can see every single move in advance. And that is the scene of this divine showdown, because God gave Moses some extra help. Besides the staff, he's been promised something special. The God of the Israelites has been identified, and Moses is leading the people against the Pharaoh and against the gods of Egypt. Ooh, the gods of Egypt. Remember the polytheistic Egyptian religion? Well, Moses is about to unleash 10 separate plagues. Have you heard these? These plagues are direct challenges to many of the Egyptian gods. Each plague is a targeted attack on a specific god designed to prove that there is one true God. Do you see how this is advancing the identity of a people? To see that they are promised from a God, from the one true God. And so this is a religious understanding of people that follow Abraham are seeing this identity of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So here's the challenge that emerges. It's not just Moses versus the Pharaoh. It's God versus the gods. The showdown, these plagues are going to get worse and worse and worse. Do you know what are the plagues? So plague number 1, the Nile River is going to turn into blood. The Nile River was Egypt's life blood, and it was turned to blood. This was an assault on the river god Hapi and Osiris, showing that they were powerless to protect the sacred river. Plague 2, the frogs infesting the land. This was supposed to be a symbol of fertility, but it becomes a mocking when these frogs are everywhere and they're rotting and they're stinking. Third, the gnats. The dust of the earth becomes gnats, which is like the challenge to Geb, G-E-B, the god of the earth, showing that God's power pervades over the ground that they walked on. Plague number 4, the flies. Swarms of flies attacking Egyptians, but not Israelites. It shows God's control over order and chaos. Remember that from a prior Egyptian lesson. It is corrupting the protection that's supposed to be symbolized by the scarab god Khepri. Plague number 5, livestock. The pestilence, a disease that kills only the Egyptian livestock. It's a direct blow to the cow goddess Hathor and the bull god Apis. Plague 6, the boils. People are getting boils all over them, but only the Egyptians, which challenges the gods of health and healing like Sekhmet and Isis, rendered powerless. At this point, the hail in plague number 7 is catastrophic hail that destroys crops and people, and it proves that neither the sky goddess, Nut, or the storm god Set could do anything to prevent this. Plague number 8, the locust. A massive swarm covers everything and demonstrates the ultimate control over the agriculture, which mocks the grain god Neper. Plague number 9, the darkness. For 3 days, an unearthly type of darkness covered Egypt. The ultimate humiliation for the most powerful of all the gods, the sun god Re. Plague number 10 goes much deeper, and we're gonna see the Passover is a practice in Judaism and recognized by other religious groups. Some Christians will look at the Passover and see something special here because the Passover is named for the Passover of the angel of death, because plague 10 is death. Plague 10 is death of the firstborn. This final terrible plague strikes at the heart of Egyptian society because the Pharaoh was supposed to have his own son, the firstborn son, be the next Pharaoh for sovereignty, to have sovereignty over the people. But who is the ultimate sovereign? Who has the ultimate divine authority? It's not Pharaoh. And this confrontation over the 10th plague, when the angel of death comes to kill, the Pharaoh's son was killed, the firstborn son. The nation feels crippled. The priests appeared powerless. The gods appeared to be nothing. And Pharaoh is looking at his own son. His heir is dead. The Pharaoh was said throughout all of this that his heart was hard. He had a hardened heart. This is a nation of people who have been crying out. Why is Moses even doing this? Why is God involved? Because he heard the people crying out for justice. And so God is delivering justice. The Israelites are given away to see justice because the angel of death needs to pass over the families of the Abrahamic covenant. How did they do it? How did they not receive the punishment of the plague? This is the Passover ceremony, the Passover festival, the meal of the Passover. Listen to these different elements because your family, let's say that you were in this setting, you're in Goshen, and you're seeing the effects of the plagues. And now Moses is telling you, we are about to leave. We are about to leave. But there's one last plague that needs to rain down. Each family, here's the detail. Here's the detail for the Passover. Each family had to perform some specific functions, and in an act of faith, they needed to do them exactly correctly. So sacrifice a lamb. Find a firstborn lamb that is perfect, no broken bones, no imperfections. Sacrifice that lamb, and the doorposts will have the blood of the lamb. They'll put it over their doorposts, and that would signal that the Passover of the angel of death is for this house. Pass over this house. That they are covered by the blood of the lamb, and that will pass over the punishment of death, the justice for what the Egyptians had done to the Israelite people. This is justice for enslaving the people. So the lamb that was sacrificed is roasted. It's roasted with bitter herbs. unleavened bread. You have to make unleavened bread with no yeast. It's done quickly, and the yeast symbolizes sin. You don't want the sin of the Egyptians. The Egyptians enslaved you. And the bitter herbs, that's the bitter taste of slavery. And you need to be dressed and ready for this Passover meal. You need to be ready to leave Egypt at a moment's notice. And this event, the Passover, is the final plague because it broke the Pharaoh. It broke the Pharaoh. His heart was no longer hardened at the end of this. He had lost his own son, his own heir, and that secured Israelite freedom. And it remains an iconic, powerful symbol of redemption in human history, redeemed. This all does take a lot of deep religious understanding. It is religious teaching about the descendants of Abraham, and it helps you connect with that identity of the Israelites, the Jews, Christians, Muslim followers, and far beyond that. Students would often wonder why so much specific detail is required with the Passover, with the plagues. Why not just blow up Egypt with a volcano or something? And the answer to that question matches up with life, how the world really works, how we deal with our struggles with courage and challenges, perseverance. So how would you have felt waiting inside that house, hoping you did it the right way, that your family will be covered by the blood of that lamb over your house door, the 10 plagues, the challenge to the Egyptian gods, the Passover, the act of faith. These are the opportunities for the Israelites to realize it's time to leave, time to receive their freedom. The third segment contains a dramatic escape. It's a journey through this miracle of a crossing in the Red Sea, being chased by the Egyptian army, the chariots. The Israelites are trapped on a beach. They make it through. They make it all the way around through a wilderness desert. They've crossed over into Midian. They've crossed over into the Arabian Peninsula to get to Mount Sinai. And I skipped over a lot of details there. So we've arrived now at something like a constitutional convention, a special place of gathering for the law. Here, God will establish the Mosaic covenant, Moses as a prophet, Moses as a patriarch. And he climbs Mount Sinai and spends 40 days returning with the 10 commandments, 2 stone tablets, the first set that God inscribed with his own finger. And these were not just rules. It's a complete moral, spiritual, and civic framework. And there's more to the law than just the 10, but you know the 10. You've maybe seen them, or here they are. It covers duties to God and duties to fellow human beings. First, there's only one God. God would refer to himself as I am. Moses said, hey, who am I supposed to say? You know, when I go to the Pharaoh, when I go to my own people, who do I say God is? And God would say, I am. And you hear Jehovah, you hear Yahweh. There are many names. But there's only one God. This is monotheism. Second, don't make any idols. Don't create other gods. Don't take on other ultimate sources, ultimate things. Number 2. That was number 2. Number 3, don't misuse the name of the Lord, your God. Number 4, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. So those first 4 show you a relationship with God. And what about your relationship to other people? Number 5, honor your father and mother. Number 6, don't murder. Murder. Did that come up in Hammurabi's code? Because I think we're going to check on that in a later part of the video. Don't murder. Number 7, don't commit adultery. Number 8, don't steal. Number 9, don't testify falsely. Don't lie about your neighbor. And number 10, don't be jealous. Don't covet. Don't envy. Those first 2 commandments in particular are a radical new idea in the ancient world. Monotheism, the belief in only one true God and the focus away from all these idols, Canaanite idols. They'll be there. They're coming. But you're being told not to. These are explicitly forbidden. These are commands. And the commands are different compared to Hammurabi's code. The command is don't worship physical objects. Don't make something physical into the ultimate thing or other beliefs into your ultimate thing. And that's going to make the Israelite people different than the Egyptians and the Canaanites and pretty much everybody else. Well, I just gave you the 10 commandments, but do you know what actually happened at this spot? Think, you've been abandoned, you've been left, you've been following a faith journey, but nothing's happening because Moses has been gone for 40 days. So what do? Well, the people demanded that Aaron is Moses' brother, and he's in on this. He's been around Moses this whole time. He says, make new gods. And Aaron gave in. He's like, we got to keep the people happy. So collect the gold that they took on the way out. They plundered Egypt as they were leaving. They made a golden calf, right? Wouldn't you make a golden calf and worship the golden calf? It's maybe the god Apis, or maybe it's the Canaanite god Baal, which means Lord. And Canaanites are so cool. And there were some Canaanites with them, actually, on this journey. So they're worshiping Baal with the practices and whatever, and directly violating the first two commandments. They've created another god. They've broken the promise already. So when Moses returns and sees this idolatry, he smashes the stone tablets in anger. It's a powerful symbol that the covenant had been broken, and God intended to destroy these people for their betrayal. But Moses said, don't, please, no. He interceded. He said, let's please deliver them and remember the promise to Abraham. God did not. But justice is still required. Consequences are going to naturally happen. And so Moses destroys these idols, and 3,000 people are punished, and this tragic situation is revealing the difficult truth that the political freedom is one thing, you're outside of Egypt, but achieving moral, spiritual discipline, virtue in order to handle this freedom, well, that's another challenge entirely. That's the journey of the Exodus. And you think you've handled that before, you've handled responsibilities and sudden freedom, but nothing like a lifetime of oppression and then being freed. You know, it's amazing how quickly we forget some of our own commitments that we're expected to do. Or maybe we get fearful. We get scared. We get impatient. It's like when I'm handing out the quizzes, I'm handing out the tests, and there's last minute scrambling. I mean, I used to do that, right? Last minute cramming. I want to look at the note cards one last time. Not as big of a deal as the golden calf incident and their impatience and, just throwing aside their faith. But it's a powerful lesson, and it exposes our human nature. Now, connecting the 10 Commandments to Washington, D.C., to our laws, to the world today, all over the country, you can spot the influence of the 10 Commandments. It's almost like a scavenger hunt, like in the U.S. Capitol building. Could you see Moses in the U.S. Capitol building? There is this marble portrait of Moses, and he's actually facing the Speaker of the House. Think about that. Moses, the lawgiver. There is the statue that Michelangelo carved. He was so amazing at sculpture. And so this Michelangelo and this carved, like where he's holding the beard, look at how the movement of the beard is even captured with this. But he's holding two tablets. Moses, the lawgiver. Outside the Supreme Court building, there are carvings on the different pediments, up in those triangular areas of Moses being the lawgiver. You can see it in Nebraska. You can see it at the Supreme Court of Minnesota. They're really scattered all over the country. And do you know that the first public school McGuffey readers. For almost 100 years, these McGuffey readers, got to get my McGuffey reader here, very old. These were like the textbooks that everybody used for almost 100 years. McGuffey readers were the staple of public education. And in the third McGuffey reader, there's things like the Lord's Prayer, poetry about who made the stars. But in the fourth McGuffey reader, it's called God's Law. And public school students would read the Ten Commandments. Now, skip ahead, our textbooks in public schools always had the Ten Commandments in them. But by 1980, the Supreme Court had ruled it unconstitutional to require public schools to post the Ten Commandments on the wall. They used to have them on the wall like school rules, classroom rules. So public schools can still teach this content, teach about the Ten Commandments in the textbook. It was always there, but no longer using it as a code of law. It's still okay for the Supreme Court in the Capitol building, but it brings us to a core question. Murder is wrong, right? That's in the Ten Commandments. Murder is wrong. It's also in the Code of Hammurabi. So the question is about the reason why murder is wrong. And the Ten Commandments versus, is it because of social customs? Hammurabi's code would point to that direction, but is it also because of natural law? Is it a command coming from God that murder is wrong? Well, this is part of the journey of the history, virtue, and wonder about our founding fathers and how they considered the Ten Commandments and how they impacted other societies too. Those are just a few examples of the way the Ten Commandments show up and influence the development of civilizations and societies. Segment 4, kind of a legal bonus. As we leave Mount Sinai, we've established the law, the Ten Commandments, plus a lot of extra law, and it's monotheism, unique in the world. These are different types of people that are following Abraham's covenant, and they've received the law. And Moses, well, he did disappear for 40 days, and he sees his people have panicked, and they created the golden calf, but Moses intercedes. Okay, don't do it again. Don't break the law. But this is very different if we compare to Hammurabi's code or other law codes, Canaanites and Egyptians. We know Hammurabi's is the most famous, but it's a different understanding. It's the law of Moses and the Ten Commandments, very different. So, well, let's get the setting first. As we see the Israelites are moving on in the journey, they're leaving Mount Sinai. The point was not to stay in the deserts. So they head north. You can see it on the map. They go to Kadesh Barnea, and Moses sends spies, 12 spies, go in there and scout. They scout for 40 days. 10 of them came back with this terrifying report. They said, giants, these lands are inhabited with giants. They have fortified cities. We're like grasshoppers in their sight. We're going to get squashed. They focused on the obstacles, not on the promise. But 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb, have you heard of Joshua? They told the people, trust in God's power. Look at what we've been through. Look at the big picture, the promise. But the people still panicked. They were impatient. They were weeping. They were rebelling against Moses. They wanted to get a new leader. They wanted to fire him. They wanted to go back to Egypt. They wanted slavery again because at least they knew. And they would say, I was laughing, they would say they would have leeks and garlic. They're like, garlic is so important. But look at what they're rejecting. It's really the promise of what the law does in providing justice and freedom in a different way than what everybody else is used to. What is everybody else used to? Like Hammurabi's code. If you remember Hammurabi's code, and we have that lesson that helps you with that, universal justice is just one example of many that we could look at. But if you, in Hammurabi's code, if you or noble. You were a noble man and you killed a slave. Well, you just pay a fine because that was just a slave. And you're noble. But in Mosaic Law, there's just one. Equal opportunity, don't kill. Just don't kill. No murder. Period. That's it. It applies to everyone equally. And it suggests that all human life is equal, has equally inherent value. And that's it. Which is an interesting change. And again, it's something that helps them with their identity. And there's more that you could dig into: human dignity and the way property is treated. But here we are in disbelief that it would be possible to enter Canaan and win. This is an act of profound disbelief. And God has declared there needs to be justice for your disbelief. We need to lap around the desert so that an entire generation of adults, everybody that's 20 years and older, would just cycle out, die of old age. They're not going to enter the promised land. These people are rabble-rousers. They're going to wander for 40 years. 1 year for every day that the spies were scouting out the land. And the generation is rebelling yet again because they don't think they're part of the covenant, the promise. They were impatient. They were scared. And it seems like a harsh punishment, but it's still part of the transformation and the building of the forge. Yes, the forging of the identity, because the desert is now a crucible. The crucible where this generation is going to be put through a hot test, put through the fire, so to speak. Having lived their entire lives as slaves, the people were not ready, or something was wrong about the responsibilities of freedom and self-governance and trusting the covenant. So 40 years of wandering is going to strip away the slave mentality, because those people that were part of the slaves will be cycled out. Old age. A new generation will rise up in 40 years, and it's teaching them to depend on God, the covenant, the promise for their daily survival. Because do you know that while they're in the desert, food is being provided to them? Manna is coming down from the sky. Manna is a word that means, what is it? Because we're like, what is it? What is this food that's coming from the sky? Water is coming in miraculous ways. They're getting direction for where to go. But it takes a long time to develop the strength. In this case, it's 40 years. For you, how long does it take you to develop the strength and the understanding, whether it's sports or just building something or enduring a difficult family situation? Well, this happens to a lot of us, that you realize shortcuts aren't really helpful in life. They're cutting corners. It doesn't really help you with your challenges or, just escaping problems. And this desert wandering that the Israelites are currently engaged in is a hard lesson in faith and character, but something different is going to happen at the end, at the next stage of the journey. There is no end to it, right? At the next stage, because we have traced the story of the Abrahamic covenant through these plagues and the Passover and the law giving at Sinai. The Bronze Age technology of the Egyptians was not enough to overcome the departure and the displacement of the Pharaoh. And there's a lot to unpack there, because in the Egypt lesson, it is possible that Amenhotep IV and Akhenaten, that was his name, he changed it to, they tried to make a monotheistic version. And it is possible that they came to power after seeing what happened with the plagues and with the Hebrew people leaving. With a classical view, you could see the pursuit of truth is at the core of their classical journey through the wilderness, and it helps us see the good of the lessons that they're learning and building up the strength for the next part of the journey. It's never really over, but eventually experience the beauty of the results. And this story is really the ultimate long-time search for truth and freedom. And the Exodus is about to end, and the Israelites have received deliverance out of slavery, out of Egypt. And it really shows us the timeless truth of what's happening. And that achieving political freedom is one thing, no more Egypt Pharaoh in charge of us, but developing the identity and the moral, the spiritual discipline to handle that freedom, that's a separate challenge. Enduring principles and understanding about liberty and human nature, like it's as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. So what will you carry forward from this age? Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history, and that includes your history, some classical truth for your journey, because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.